Okay, students, so a short video just about the last event on our migration and settlement timeline, which is about the 1889 Oklahoma land rush. But as you've read, this was the first land rush, but there actually went on to become 7 of these events. So in front of you, I've just got the piece of land that they decided would be settled on that particular day. Now, it's rather a peculiar story, but the first thing to understand is that no settler was actually allowed onto that piece of land before the land rush actually took place itself. So what you have to imagine is that there were hundreds of people on the borders of the land all the way round. Lex is there if you're trying to draw it out. And what they were doing was they were waiting for that particular appointed moment at 12 o'clock when a cannon would sound in lots of places around the land, and that meant that they were allowed to go onto the piece of land and try and claim one piece for themselves. Now, all the land had actually been split up already, and it had all been split up into small pieces or plots of land just on a very, very simple grid system. So you have to imagine this grid system all the way over the pieces of land. So I'm only drawing it in small parts of it. But each piece was the 160 acres of land that had been assigned to homesteaders from the 1862 Homestead Act. So if, for example, you can imagine you've got these people who are actually waiting on the borders of the land, they may well have already had it in their mind where they wanted to take one of these pieces of land from. The reason for that is because some of the pieces of land were much better for farming. As you may have been able to notice on the other PowerPoint, although there weren't many streams and rivers on the plains, there was, for example, a rather large river that ran through the north of this piece of territory, and those plots of land would be potentially better places to settle. In the next video you'll watch, it'll also talk to you about a particular place that homesteaders were keen to settle in, and that place became known as, and if I write it down, a place called Guthrie. Now, Guthrie was a place where you already had a railroad running from the state above of Kansas through to Guthrie itself. So that was a particular place close to a river and close to a railroad that could potentially be an easier and a better place to settle. So they'll explain about the growth of Guthrie to you when you watch that next video. Now, the other video that you'll watch after that is from a feature film called Far and Away. It stars Tom Cruise, and they actually produced a scene that's supposed to recreate these rather odd moments from the land rush actually starting at 12 o'clock. Some of it perhaps is a little bit over dramatized, but there are some interesting points in it. What you actually see is you see these people trying to race to the best plots of land. If you imagine then the plots of land themselves, if you imagine this is one 160 acre plot, then right in the centre of it, they'd already positioned the US government just a very, very simple flag in the centre of that plot. And the idea was you'll see them riding along on their horses or on their horses pulling their wagons, and they get to the plot. They have a flag themselves. You'll see one of those flags has numbers on. They take the numbered flag out. They put their own flag in, and that's where we get the phrase from called staking your claim. So you're claiming that piece of land. There's a wonderful piece at the end of that Far and Away scene. It's only a short scene, but really worth watching, where you see a man and a woman who are trying to make it look like they're tired and exhausted. Well, their story is based on some truth. The evening before the land rush took place, what happened was some people rather sneakily, and there was the US Army supposed to be guarding all of the border, but it was rather too big to guard all of it. What they actually did is they actually crept onto the land. they may have found a plot that was a very, very good plot, but they couldn't simply put their flag in and claim it straight away. So they'd wait for the rest of the homesteaders who are rushing across to come close to them, look like they've been really, really tired and exhausted from riding from the border themselves, and then stake a claim to that rather nice piece of land. Those people in history got a nickname. They were called the Sooners, because the Sooners had got onto land rather sooner than anyone else had. And Oklahoma sometimes has a nickname where it's called the Sooner State, because they sort of celebrate the idea that these people had, I suppose, a little bit of courage to try and break the rules to settle the land that was there. I hope that makes the land rush a little clearer. Do now watch the next two videos and make sure you've completed your final revision card for the Oklahoma land rush. Obviously the date on our timeline is 1889 because that was the first one. But as I said, going back to the point I made, there were 7 in all.